Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Art Robbins, and welcome to today's webinar on marketing's new normal, and hosted by Twimbit. I am going to be your moderator today for what I know is going to be an inspiring and thought-provoking discussion. We have a great panel of accomplished senior marketing leaders who work with some of the most innovative companies in the industry, and they've been kind enough to join us and share with you, our audience, their views on both the challenges and the key success factors of how to navigate through this new normal that we're all living in. So, as a matter of introduction, I'm the Director of Americas for Twimbit. My career has focused on consulting and collaborating with senior executives to develop and implement innovative growth strategies and innovative go-to-market strategies, leveraging the latest digital technologies and business models. 2020 is an unprecedented year living with a global pandemic. And what's incredible and also unnerving is that we are all experiencing a level of disruption to our business, our society, and our lives that we've never experienced before. This has forced senior leaders to face these challenges and respond with new effective strategies. And the response is at an Olympian pace and scale. Those who do this well are going to emerge very successful and have a positive impact on their business, their customers, and society. There are also many growth opportunities that emerge, and there are companies that have prevailed and emerged as leaders taking advantage of these growth opportunities. I recently read a great statement in a recent McKinsey Digital article that said that in the past 4 months, the rate of digital transformation has advanced by 10 years. No more are companies just dipping their toe in the water or doing a slow rollout of digital. Companies are going all in. And the change is not temporary, it's permanent. And there's no turning back. We are truly facing a new normal, and we must be resilient and adapt to lead our businesses in this new digital era. This is what we want to explore today, and we want to look at it through the lens of marketing. So with that, let me turn to our great panel, and I'm going to let each speaker introduce themselves. So panel, welcome. It's great to have you all here. Thank you for participating. And not only introduce yourself, but tell us what these challenges have meant to you as the marketing leader for your company and clients, and how you have dealt with it. So let's start with Annie.
Thank you, Art, and thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you all today. I am the CMO plus people at a company called Unifor, and Unifor is squarely focused on AI and automation for customer service. So our vision is to disrupt essentially an outdated customer service model by bridging the gap between human and machine using voice, AI, and automation. And I'm sure being home, you guys have spent some time calling, potentially having a bad customer service experience or calling a contact center. I know I have, just in having kids home and more people on the network have needed to recently call a service provider and spent about 8 hours on the phone with customer service for something really simple. So our job is really to empower contact centers, empower agents with the technology so that every voice on every call is not only heard, but also understood. Art talked a lot about this disruption that we're seeing. We see it in the McKinsey report, and we've certainly seen it within the call center. In fact, the first, I would say, 10 weeks of the pandemic, there was a Gartner report initially that said of the 14 million call center workers by 2035, 20% of those people would be remote. Well, within 10 weeks of the pandemic, our customers were seeing a large percentage, more like 85% of their employees remote. And they're on top of it, these people were in countries that didn't necessarily have the infrastructure to support it. So for the contact center industry or for customer service, they've just been inundated. So it's been really interesting to us to think about how we put ourselves in their shoes and be empathetic as marketers about how to really understand the challenges that they're going through, and then how our solution at Unifor can help them. I don't know, Art, if that was what you're looking for, but happy to elaborate more.
Great. That's a great intro, Annie. Thank you very much. Let's continue with the introductions. David, would you like to go next?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dave Brzezinski. I'm the Executive Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Fleet Complete. We're a global company in about 18 countries, and we are a leading global provider of fleet asset and workforce management solutions to small, medium, and enterprise businesses. We attach and touch every single vertical globally, and it's quite a great market to be in. This COVID crisis has been unlike any other crisis I've ever seen in my career in the last 25, 30 years I've been in business. And it's really forced us as an organization to make hard decisions. And what I like to call being ruthless with the resources that we currently have to continue to add shareholder value on a daily basis, and to add value to our customers as well, and our addressable market, and how do we get to it. This ruthless usage of resources has forced us to make hard decisions. And those hard decisions are to, in some cases, look at our go-to-market strategies that were our legacy, that were always very profitable and very successful, and sometimes, in many cases, deleverage from those, and then focus on a much more digital-focused strategy. This has become the cornerstone of how we've been able to react and to be able to continue to grow through COVID. And it will be moving forward as we see no end in sight for the work from home, for how people are engaging. They're no longer engaging in more historical methods. They're now engaging in legacy methods. They're engaging more in a digital fashion. And if we look at an experience that we have seen from our outcomes in the past 4 months, we saw our digital activity and lead activities actually increase dramatically as more people were sitting in seats. And because they were sitting in seats, they were engaging online. They were engaging with the content. We had longer nurturing processes that have developed into very strong sales cycles. So, the one thing that we've had to do, and I think everyone's going to have to do, is take a hard look at their business and really understand what's going to make them successful moving forward. Because what was is no longer what is.
That was great insights, David. Thank you very much. Sam, let's go with you.
Well said, David and Annie. It's great to be part of this panel with the two of you, and thank you again, Art and Manoj, for putting this on. My name is Samantha Mcdermott. I am the managing partner of Sajo Advisors. We are a marketing, communications, and business development firm focused on small to middle market businesses in the B2b sector. And I think I can relate very strongly to what David just said, that we've, with some of our clients, had to fully rethink our entire marketing strategy for 2020. In fact, one of them is so relationship focused that our strategy was 100% events and face-to-face based. So the last, I'd say, 6 to 8 weeks, we have just zoomed out. We have re-looked at our customer journey and remapped that entire process and looked at that sales cycle very differently with the resources that we have in place and the folks that are currently and actively trying to market new opportunities. So it's an interesting time for all of us. I can say with certainty, I've never expected to live through a black swan event like this, and we're certainly learning quite a bit. Digital is and has been a part of the strategy, but now it is the cornerstone of that. And so now it's about looking at that and making sure that every time we get in front of somebody virtually, we're providing some kind of value. And it's things like this that TwinBit is actively working on that make a difference. If you put a white paper in front of somebody, you got to answer the question, so what? what is that going to mean to the potential customer, your current customer, your prospect, because we're all competing for the same time. And while we have people in a captive space at home, they're dealing with their kids going back to school, their dogs barking in the background. I mean, there's so much going on that I think, Anna, you mentioned this, having a different empathy lens is as we kind of move forward and map out the rest of 2020.
Yeah, and if I can add to that, it's really taken us a chance to step back, and it brought almost a forced look not only at marketing for us as a company, but a look at how we operate globally. And our business is global as well, but we saw it a bit early because started noticing from customers in JPAC and due to business in Asia. And at that point, we at Unifor developed a principle as a leadership team to over-communicate and change some of our mechanisms, not only with our leadership team being more visible, but across our customer and kind of community base. We established about 5 different war rooms on different subjects. One was around our go-to-market sales and marketing motion. One was around business continuity planning. One was around employee health and preservation. One was around financials. And as part of the go-to-market motion, marketing really played a key role in this, setting up a specific offering for customers and testing that out, providing, great partnership for the business, defining that offer, giving the competitive insights, et cetera. But we've really had to use the pandemic to rebuild and re-engineer and refuel the airplane that was marketing.
Excellent. That's a great case study, Annie. Thank you. Manoj, let's complete the introductions. And
Excellent.
Introduce yourself.
Hey, thank you very much, Art. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks very much for joining this session. We are so thrilled to have this opportunity to have this dialogue. We founded Twimbit a little over a year ago. And the mission for our company was to say, how can we bring some joy in the consumption of research? Because so much research gets produced, so very little of it gets consumed. And it doesn't get consumed because it is not personalized, it is not persona-driven, it is not kept pace with all the changes that we see around us in the consumer space. We all enjoy the likes of TikTok, etc. so much, and we consume so much of that content. But when it comes to research content, that industry hasn't kept pace. So is there a better way we can use research and engage with audiences better so that we can improve the impact of our respective businesses and the respective careers? And we were built 100% digital. So in many ways, COVID has been a great catalyst for us and for helping position ourselves well. And we had our first event in Malaysia. It was in Feb 15th or Feb 19th, and the second event was the 1st of March. And on the second and that first week of March, we had to quickly transition from being a 100% physical event to a digital event within less than 5 days. There was so much of anxiety and working remotely and making that possible. And we learned so quickly that people are ready for it. It is just that we needed to change our habits. We needed to embrace quickly a little bit of discomfort that this new digital medium brings to the way we function. And we have over the last 5 months or so now. We have learned so much about, we have challenged some of the notions that we carried with. You cannot approach digital with the same lens that we approach a physical environment. And many a times we try to replicate that in a digital environment. And those are the things that we have learned in this 5-month journey so far. Digital has also meant that we could go global a lot faster. What would have taken us maybe a couple of years to do something in the US, thanks to digital, we are able to embrace it so much more quickly and engage with audiences so much more quickly. So truly exciting time as far as the digital business is concerned, but clearly very challenging times for a lot of businesses, and to help them navigate the change and help the leaders as well as the teams navigate the change. So look forward to challenging and talking more as we go along the session.
Okay, great. Well, those are all great introductions, and clearly there are common themes about reinventing, reimagining the business. So let's start to unpack this. And one way I'd like to approach unpacking it is to explore this 3E framework that we found. And when we think about marketing, one of the traditional frameworks, one of the bedrocks of marketing has always been the 4P framework: price, product, placement, and promotion. I mean, we all grew up on this. That's been like the holy grail of marketing. But recently there's been a line of thinking that the 4Ps are no longer sufficient. That in this new digital era, we really need to think about yet an additional framework called the 4Es, which is grounded on experience, exclusivity, engagement, and emotion. Now, let me just take a minute to define for the audience what we mean by those 4 terms. So experience is the customer journey, from purchasing all the way through, the full product life cycle. Exclusivity is focused on providing personalized services to each customer and addressing their unique needs. Engagement is creating an ongoing interaction between the customer and the company that creates a two-way relationship. And then finally, emotion is a result of bringing all of that together. That creates a true emotional connection between the customer and the brand, which ultimately results in long-term loyalty and a customer for life. So with that, thinking about the 4Es, my question for the panelists is, what's your reaction to that? And what examples have you seen where these 4Es have been used successfully, to create a true competitive advantage in this digital era? I'll open it up. Who'd like to go first?
I'll start, and then I'll let the way too smarter ladies go after me. When you speak about experience, and I go back to the ruthless resourcing, everyone has to take a look at their go-to-market strategies. Many of us have those legacy customer-facing. How they are selling today is not what it was. We all have to make sure that we're selling in a fashion that is has a strong or a good cost of acquisition, that is going to reach the audience that you need to reach, and it has to be done in a fashion where people are actually going to buy today. There's a lot of shy buyers out there. They're afraid. They're cash poor. Capital expenses are being tied up or withdrawn. Operating budgets are getting smaller on a monthly and daily basis. So you have to take a look at what is the most successful method by which you can go to market, and how can you get your message, your micro message, and your, as I said, your value, as Samantha so eloquently said, your value out to the customer. And for us, it's been going to the digital method. We've had a very historical go-to-market strategy through channels, as well as through, as I heard others say, through an old-fashioned get in front of them, shake their hand, look them directly in the eyes. Well, those days are gone. We can't do that anymore, at least not without a mask and an elbow bump. That said, we had to change and create those deep relationships online, over the phone, and we have to do it through our marketing, through very long nurturing cycles, and really micro-targeting our audiences. And by doing that, we've been able to recreate that same kind of relationship and still deliver the same value, but just in a new fashion. For us, it's meant that we also have the ability to target new markets that we've not been able to look at previously. Whereas we were maybe going to roll out into these other markets in different fashions, more traditional ones. We're now targeting it from an inside call center and digital lead generation campaign strategy. So with, the old adages, don't let any crisis not become an opportunity. This is an opportunity for many organizations.
Yeah, I so agree. If I can add on to what David said, the uniqueness about where we are today is it's not just one industry or one company or one country dealing with what we're dealing with. And I think at least right now, we're fortunate to live in a time where we can communicate via Zoom or via StreamYard or via WebEx. As marketers, more than ever right now, we have to understand who our customers are, how they're moving through the experience, what emotional dynamics are at play, what information is required to make them successful in their roles. The other thing that David said, which I think is quite important, is everybody's focusing. And at a time of crisis, CEO's number one priority and the C-suite's priority becomes cost savings. And so how do we, during a downturn, express to them, be very direct, be very intentional, be very repetitive about the ROI that your solution can bring? That's very important. For us, the experience has changed. And so we've had to spend some time rebuilding our customer journey, outlining customer content by industry, and really taking a targeted approach to that. And then the last thing that I'll say is I don't think you have to have the 4 E's in every single campaign that you run, right? There may be things, on the exclusivity and engagement side that work really well for you. Run with those, right? Example that I'll give for us is analyst relations. We partnered, I partnered with our analyst relations lead to develop a strategy. And we were very specific and targeted with the people that we wanted to spend the most time with. So if you can look at the E's and say, what are you going to be the best at? Maybe you don't need all 4 of them. That's the one thing that I'll say.
I would agree with that too, Annie. I think that it becomes almost impossible to include all 3 E's on that. And it really requires, kind of taking a blend of what the two of you just said, one of my clients is a tech consulting firm. And so their sole purpose is to go in and solve very complex problems for highly sophisticated customers. And we would be totally tone deaf if we approached them the same way as we did 5 or 6 months ago, right? So now it's a matter of us kind of taking a step back and saying, okay, what fires are they putting out every single day? And where could we play a role to make their lives easier? And it's kind of off the wall, but I even had an interesting conversation with a gentleman in IT who said to me, he said, I can't even get my hands on wipes for my team, right? Wipes on the computer screens and everything else. And I thought, okay, true. This is a commodity item that's very hard to come by. Sent him a case of them. And I'll tell you something, it made an impression. It had nothing to do with the business that we're in, but it was solving a problem that he had in the moment, and it certainly made an impact. And so to the degree that we can kind of listen a little bit differently to our customers, and again, I'm not suggesting that we all start some massive sanitary wipe campaign, but the spirit of it is, we had a different listening, and that resonated and made an impact to the point where we're now going to get another opportunity to have additional conversations with this customer or prospect and move the cycle forward, where everybody else is competing for very valuable time on their Zoom calendar as well.
Yeah, I think
Samantha,
sorry.
Go ahead, Manoj.
No, I think I was just saying that the challenge with digital is that while the opportunity is incredible, so also is the window of opportunity. We don't have the luxury of having that 60-second elevator pitch anymore. Maybe that pitch is less than 10 to 15 seconds. So how do we get our message across in such an increasingly crowded market space where everybody thinks that we are all waiting there to respond to the next message and the next invite that is coming to us? So how do we work across this entire noise to be able to deliver the message very, very effectively? And I just want to share some examples of companies who have done extremely well. And I believe the banks in many instances have done a great job in reaching out and modifying and supporting the campaigns. I was looking at this particular example of I think it is ASB Bank in New Zealand, and they wanted to support small businesses, and they came up with, and they always had the All Blacks in New Zealand be associated with the All Blacks, which is the New Zealand's national rugby team. And instead of going down the traditional path of running many campaigns using the All Blacks, what they did was they said, hey, let's use that budget and let's make it available to the top 100 SMEs in the country. Come and use the All Blacks to promote your product. Yeah? So you can see how they turned that entire narrative around. They were able to emotionally engage with about 100 odd businesses and at the same time serve the same purpose. So they looked at the entire customer journey a lot differently. And we are seeing companies are adapting to that change. I also think the other big opportunity in this digital world is about the ability to build communities, communities around sense of purpose that we as businesses are looking at solving. And digital is a key catalyst. We would have struggled to set up those digital communities effectively had it been 6 months ago. Now we have a better chance if we have the right content to support that. So I just want to throw those two things into the mix so that we can discuss more.
I think those are great examples, and it's a lot of times you hear people say experience is everything, and it's harder if you're not in front of the customer, to understand from their point of view what would make a better experience. I mean, what additional insights do you all have of how do you monitor the pulse of the customer in light of everything being virtual, and how can you improve the experience if it's even tough to get in front of the customer in the first place?
Going back to the example of the banks, the reason I'm so enamored by the way they are approaching it is they're really re-looking at the entire customer journey. So they don't wait for you to approach them for a loan anymore now. So they're engaging now with us on the purposes that we need the loan for. Right? And it is happening in the consumer space. I can see it is happening in the SME space as well. So as a consumer, the world's best bank, which is DBS Bank in Singapore, which is saying, hey, don't come to me after you have made a decision and looking for the cheapest home loan available. You know what? Let me help you find your home. Let me be involved in that journey altogether. So how does that translate to a B2B environment, right? So how can we engage with our customers, not when they are looking and shopping at that moment to buy our specific product or service? How can we engage with them a little earlier in that entire discovery? And if we can be part of that journey, then we have a chance to be able to differentiate and be effective. So I think the definition of that customer journey is now starting a lot earlier than when we would traditionally start, and the competition for that is really intensifying.
This goes back to 25 years ago we're back to the future, really. It's 25 years ago of creating the pain for the consumer. It's engaging earlier in the buying or the nurturing cycle. We've got to be much earlier. And how do we become much earlier? Well, we can no longer run campaigns at the 50,000 or the 30,000 foot level. We have to run campaigns at the 500 foot level, what I like to call micro-targeting. But we saw this coming early on, and we figured that we would need to pivot our campaigns from the 20 and 30,000 foot levels and cross vertical to hyper and micro-targeting into very, very small niches. And that way we found their pain much earlier in the cycle, which created the sales cycles. For us, it was last mile delivery. We found out all these drivers were being created for delivering food. And we're like, this is incredibly niche. We would have never targeted this before, but we saw it as a huge need and we targeted it. You have to scan and talk to your customers and find out what they're doing and what their pains are. You got to talk to them about their pains to readdress that pain back to the audience. Another one was where we found out large customers, small customers were leaving abandoned or not used equipment. because their businesses were essentially shut down. In a field, trucks, cranes, bulldozers, generators, and just left. And we're like, okay, we never even thought about this. Now we found the ability, we create another micro market, abandoned vehicles or vehicles that are no longer being used, sitting untouched because everyone's in quarantine. No one would have thought of this had we not talked to our customers early and then created these micro-targeting campaigns to get involved earlier in the cycle.
David, I have a possible opportunity for you. I kid you not. Just building on that real quick, Art. You know, I'm in Palm Springs right now, and one of the things that we saw during this cycle very early on was we had all the Canadians had to go home. So the folks that tended to spend 3 to 4 months of their year in the Palm Springs area, they just went back home. They left their homes, their condos, their cars. And one of the businesses locally that had their very specific niche in storage, they have just absolutely exploded and they're looking for more space and they're looking for the right lending partners because they have a new market now. It is these Canadians that may not be able to get back for the rest of the year, but they want to make sure that their car, which they left wherever to get on the last plane, is well taken care of, as well as their house, everything else. So I think you're right. It's a matter of kind of zooming out and looking at the world a little bit differently. And those of us who are able to pivot quickly enough will win in this economy for sure.
Engagement with our customers, our existing customers today is super key. They're the ones that know what's going on. And without that conversation and without being close to them and taking that and synthesizing that data back, we are not going to be successful as marketers in micro-targeting.
I was going to comment, I'm hearing a new set of P's emerging. I'm hearing pain, proactive, and pivot. So, so everything's changing. Even the P's are changing.
Yeah, it's wartime. You know, I think I was talking to somebody. They said it is wartime today, and we need to operate as businesses as if it is wartime. And if we don't understand the intensity of that change, we will not succeed. Yeah. Sorry, Anne.
Yeah, Annie, go ahead.
Oh, no, sorry, Manoj. I was just going to comment in addition to what David had said about the micro-targeting. It's not only thinking about your customers, but it's thinking about your customers' customers and being there for them early in the journey because they may not be ready to buy from you now. For companies like ours, we have a 12-month sales cycle. So being there for them. So when they're ready to come to you, we had a customer come to us based in the US, and their board wanted to understand the impact of COVID and what the impact was on their customer base. So they had a huge spike in call volumes. Their CSAT was declining. They had put together some hypotheses and correlations, and we stepped in, quickly built dashboards for them, they used it then, the data, to refine their messaging and to turn the CSAT back around. So within 1 week, they had relief programs in place. They were able to modify some of the orchestrations that they were doing with their clients, and they could see clearly the hot spots that they needed to address. So that piece in terms of being there for your customers, really being there for the care. So when they are ready to need you, you're right there and available.
That's great. Okay. I think that was a great discussion. I mean, we had some great insights and some actionable insights, which is what we want. So let's shift to the next phase of the program, which I'm going to call rapid fire questions. So in the spirit of the digital economy and thinking fast and asking fast, I'm going to just ask a bunch of really short pointed questions, and I'd like to do a round robin for each one where each of you gives a very short, concise answer. No more than 30 seconds. Shorter is better. So Annie, we're going to start with you, and then we're going to rotate, as we go. So the first question I have is there any opportunity for a B2B use for TikTok?
So we aren't using it now, but yes, for sure. And I think you treat it like any other community that you have. They're the fastest growing social platform. You saw the news on Microsoft. They're kind of this funny, cringy, addictive package all in one. And so many brands are being creative using it. So I think the answer is yes.
Okay, Manoj.
Hey, I think the answer is yes. And it's a lot more hard work to customize the message in such a short window. We are on day 0 of this, but the answer is yes.
Okay, Sam.
It depends. From my view, it depends on the customer and the company you're dealing with and the product or service you're providing.
Okay.
That's my short
David.
answer, Art.
Sure. It's okay.
It's never fun to go last in these types of things because you always have to reiterate what other people say. But it depends. It depends on the content because you want to be careful. You don't create what I like to call the art of the uncool. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, we had a great campaign where we tortured some of new devices, very tough asset tracker. We drove over it with a car. That created immense engagement. Our customers came back and said, hey, why don't you drive over it with a truck? So we drove over it with a truck. And then it failed. Then they said, well, why don't you burn it? And why don't you freeze it in ice? Why don't you put it in the outback? And we did all these crazy things and it created immense engagement. And had there been a TikTok at the time, absolutely, that would have been a great campaign for that. So absolutely, but I think you have to be careful about, again, not creating the art of the uncool.
Okay, so we have to stay tuned. I know for me, I'm taking lip syncing lessons from my daughter. I'm being prepared. So, okay, next question. Is taking social positions an important element of marketing for B2B? Manoj, let's start with you.
I think it is important on selectively on specific issues. It cannot do it across the board, but for very critical issues that the brand stands for and is passionate about, I think we should be taking those positions.
Okay, Sam.
I think, again, I hate to do it, but it depends, and it depends on where you are as a brand. I'll give you an example. With the recent BLM movement, we saw a lot of brands supporting that, but it also fell a little bit on deaf ears because they weren't willing to back it up. And so I advised a couple of my clients, I said, look, if you're not truly committed to really making a difference in this particular space, don't comment on it because you're going to look totally inauthentic.
Great point. David.
Yeah, it comes down to, it depends. I think it's important for us to know who our target audience is, and one group of consumers is going to respond differently to a campaign versus another group of consumers. You don't want to alienate your brand of consumers. We already see this today in the way many companies shy away from commenting on foreign governmental action because it could affect the market. Is this any different? I think each company has to take a look at their own businesses and make their own decisions.
Okay, Annie.
I agree with everything that's been said by the panelists. I think we've seen stats that as much as 80% of businesses or business leaders will end a relationship based on how a vendor fails to take a stance on certain issues. Consumers do expect people to take a stance and share values on important issues. That's very clear, right? We're all consumers. We all understand that. Values without action can be dangerous. And I think Sam alluded to that, and it's never been more true.
Yeah, Sam hit the nail on the head with that one, for sure.
Excellent. Okay, next question. How has work from home impacted your ability to attract and retain talent? Let's start with Sam.
Again, kind of on the client side, Art, it's been more about looking at their business model. One of them is on the consulting side, and they were hyper-focused on the Southern California market. What's happened now is we've truly gone global, as Manoj had mentioned, and so the opportunity to find talent in other countries that have a specific area of expertise is amazing, and it's wonderful, and hopefully we can continue to keep this up because there are some great opportunities for all of us, I think.
Dave.
This is an easy one. Yes to everything. With work from home is something we'd already engaged in. We'll be going much more strongly aligned with the work from home values. The talent pool widens up massively. Our employees are much happier. their lives are more balanced, they're far more productive. Yes.
Okay. Annie.
So we were a little bit different. We weren't working at home at all. So everybody was coming into an office around the globe, whether it was Singapore, India, Palo Alto, et cetera. We have been really fortunate in that we are continuing to hire. Business is centered upon AI and automation, and clearly that's something that people are investing in now. We will probably add about 125 people to our startup globally this year. What work from home has enabled for us is to have applicants in other areas, as you would expect. The challenge for me as a people leader is that we have onboarded more than 70 people around the world since March, which is pretty big to know that there are 70 people that have never stepped foot into our office or been face-to-face in an interview with our employees. So that's been, a challenge, but an exciting one for me.
I think, Annie, you really hit the nail on the head on that one as well, with the fact that one of the hardest things from this is bridging the gap in a virtual environment for onboarding of new employees. For example, we've got call centers for salespeople. You miss the boiler room aspect of it, having people in a boardroom, the camaraderie, the competition, all the things that go along with it. It's a little harder to recreate, but it's not undoable, or it's not impossible. My apologies. And but onboarding is probably one of the biggest challenges, and we have to get creative how we use it, how we do it, and how we are going to manage moving forward.
Yeah. Work from home, Art, is, we were fortunate. We are being a young company, less than 18 months. We had the flexibility of starting and enabling a lot of work from home. But I believe now we see a huge opportunity that work from home is not just about work from home, but is acing remote work. How can we build our company around a remote environment itself altogether? So we just completed a research, and we'll release it in the next day or so. Top 10 companies in the world that ace remote work. So how do you use that as a philosophy? Because it's not just about saying I provide you the tools and I do some wellness programs, but can I build a business model around acing remote work? And I think there is an opportunity of companies trying to do it. And it means not just FW work from home, but also maybe freelance workers, leveraging the gig economy, etc., all as subsets of it.
Okay, excellent. Let's go to the next question. What are the top digital platforms for your marketing programs? David.
Oh, I'm going to be boring here. I hate to say it, but Facebook, LinkedIn, Google have been really mainstays for us. They fit our demographics of our customers very, very well. And I hate to say this as well, but during this time when I've got limited resources, I'm not taking big chances on new things.
Mm-hmm. That's great advice. Let's go to Annie.
I always go to what we're trying to accomplish, starting with what the end goal is. But I would say LinkedIn, depending on budget, and targeting Google, leveraging influencers. We've been doing a lot, just launched a new podcast called Conversations That Matter, and using influencers to have those important conversations. And then social paid through some Twitter.
Okay, great. Manoj.
Yeah, LinkedIn and Google in limited way, but we're still early days. We're learning.
Okay, and Sam.
I'd say LinkedIn has been our mainstay, and we're trying to create, white papers with the help of folks like Manoj, and get that really out there to a very targeted group.
All right. Okay, next question. Name another company you consider as a best practice for B2B marketing. Annie, let's start with you.
That's a great question. I think Microsoft has done a really good job. I watched their transition to Satya Nadella, studied that very closely ahead of the Cisco transition that we did. They've grown into one of the most valuable companies in the world, and I think that they've done a brilliant job in terms of how they've positioned themselves and how they've accelerated.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
I think Annie just told the company I wanted to say, but I think I'll add another one to the mix is because I think what Satya did is he brought his persona into the marketing mix. That's how he connected with the emotion. He released a book He communicated with the stakeholders. So they took marketing to the entire next level with what he did. But I can add another company to the mix, which is Genesis. And I think they do a great job of customer references, case studies, white papers, and the consistency and the repeatability with which they do stuff. So I quite like them, and it's worth looking up.
Excellent. Sam?
I'm going to go with Amazon, and in part because they are really helping, their platform is helping these small to medium-sized businesses, and the folks who have been kind of on lockdown in the traditional retail space have really been able to maintain, just to stay in business through this whole pandemic. So that would be my vote on this one. But obviously, Annie, I think, yours is the top one. We wouldn't be anywhere without Microsoft at this point. They're kind of everywhere.
We would not be on this call.
Yep.
Dave?
Mine would be Shopify. I think Shopify has done a fantastic job of differentiating and growing from a seed to a $160 billion monster against some of the biggest players, Amazon, eBay, others out there, in such a short period of time. They've done a fantastic job of really targeting who their audience is, who their market is, and I have a lot of respect for them.
That's great examples. Okay, name one thing we can learn from B2C companies to help us with our B2B marketing. Let's start with Manoj.
Yeah, of late I've been seeing live streaming is emerging as a very, very interesting medium, an ability to engage. And, so I see a huge opportunity for businesses to engage with customers more effectively through mechanisms such as live streaming, which can be, if done in a repetitive, consistent manner, can be quite interesting.
Okay, great. Sam?
So kind of I'd build on that as well, Manoj, but I'd also look at some of the vehicles and again, it's the Instagrams of the world who have done a really good job of connecting with consumers. And in fairness to them, they've also done a nice job with some of these smaller shops and getting the message out to a broader group. I'm watching them and trying to see if there's certain things that we can pick up from what they're doing and how they're communicating in a very, as David had said so beautifully earlier, micro-targeted way.
Okay, Dave?
Creating delight. Without a doubt, the ability for those top-notch companies like Apple, who can create delight and create the sticky factor with their consumers, who they must have the new device before it comes out. That ability to open the box as a business and go, wow, I am absolutely fantastically excited about this. I can't wait to open the box and do this. So creating delight with our customers is probably one of the biggest things I'm envious of, and something we strive for every day.
Perfect. Annie?
There's so much we can learn from the B2B to human approach. It's very human. It's very authentic. The live streaming approach. I mean, that I think everybody appreciates the authenticity versus the very staged presence. I'll say that there's a lot that we can learn from the China market too. So it's a fascinating space. I just came out of working about a year and a half ago, 3 years, for a electric autonomous vehicle company. But it was more of a lifestyle company called NIO, and spent a lot of time focused on that market. So it would be interesting for you guys to look into from a marketing perspective, because there's a lot that you can learn from China as a market.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Annie. There's some great case studies there that don't get much visibility here in the States. So great point. Okay, for final question, who do you look up to as a leader for marketing? Sam, let's start with you.
Gosh, that's a good one and a tough one. I would say it's a combination of the brands that are listening and responding well. And I'll give you one recent example. We were just kind of flipping through the channels and saw a really nice ad by Ford. And basically it made it so that there was no way you could lose. If you purchase a car or you lease a car and you lose your job due to COVID, it's okay. They'll take it back. No problem there. that to me just kind of demonstrates that they get it and they're listening to what's happening. And there's that level of empathy that we're all trying to achieve as B2B marketers. So yeah, from that B2C perspective, I'd say things like that are happening, that piques my interest a little bit.
Excellent. Dave.
Yeah, it is a tough question. I went through the standardized answers of people and companies and all the different kind of permutations of who or what I would admire. And I'd have to say I go down to, I admire the unique marketing campaign. Let me elaborate. The campaign that comes out of nowhere from a small company that is viral, that you just go, oh, that was so brilliant. I wish I would have thought of that myself. It cost them $48 to prepare this, and they've got 14 million likes. That's what I admire, because I only wish that I could recreate those myself on a daily basis.
That's great. Annie.
I'll take a little bit of a different approach in terms of answering the question and maybe answer it from a people perspective, since we've heard the two different answers. I like Kristen, who was the former CMO of JP Morgan Chase and now runs, she's the CEO of the US Wealth Management. I think she's done a fantastic job with JP Morgan Chase and their marketing. And then second, I would name LinkedIn, Shannon Stuber-Brayton, and most recently Mel Selker. I think both of them are fantastic CMO leaders.
Excellent. Noj.
Yeah, I really struggle with this. I've been looking and trying to learn and trying to understand, but at the risk of sounding something that everybody, I just love the way Apple does it. I love the way their consistency in their approach, the consistency of building the community. We all look forward to the first week of September. They don't need to tell us. We just look forward to that. How do they make us anticipate that? How do they build that developer conference once a year, and we look forward to that? So how do we use, we attributed it to Steve Jobs, but man, they've built it almost like a football event year after year, and built that community of raving fans around them. And I think that is maybe the gold standard that maybe brands need to work towards to try to see how we can embrace it.
Yeah, and look at all the buzz this week with the iPhone 12, the stock split. I mean, it's amazing. It is an amazing story. Okay, now this is great. I hope you had fun with the rapid fire questions. I think there were a lot of learnings and insights from that. So thanks for doing that with us. We have a couple of questions in the chat room. Let's see if we can squeeze some in before the top of the hour. One question is, can companies today get away without addressing COVID in their marketing? And can you advise how to address COVID without driving the fear culture?
I mean, one of the things that I told my team was that they were forbidden to use the word unprecedented and that we couldn't be ambulance chasers. So those were two important principles that I set out, and they sound funny, but I could not market in that way. And I didn't want to set the team up for failure.
For us, it was pretty simple. We had to address our existing customers around COVID fairly quickly, and ensure we had a compassionate message for them, to ensure that they were with us after COVID. But as things began to return to a little bit more normal, I won't say normal, I've taken a tact of shying away from anything COVID and getting back to business, getting back to the creation of wealth and getting back to the creation of jobs and things like that. I want to shy away from it and get past it.
I would agree with that, with both of what you guys said. And it's funny, we've got a hospitality client right now, and it's a struggle. But one of the things that we said we're not going to even talk about COVID, even though that is within the fabric of that particular space for obvious reasons. We're going to talk about clean, comfortable, secure, relaxed, fresh air, wellness, health, anything that kind of circulates what's on people's minds, and the convenience components. Let's not talk about the other because nobody wants to think about it, even though it's on everyone's mind when they're walking into a hotel or taking a trip somewhere. They just don't want to have that in their headspace.
We almost, as David said, need to go to the next normal for customers, whatever that looks like, right? And kind of start there.
As marketers, it's our job to take them on a journey, and that journey is on to recovery.
Great insights. Let's go to the next question. The next question is directed to Annie. Annie, you mentioned the 5 war rooms. Could you talk more about the measures that you use to manage that? How do you measure?
Yeah. So what we did as a team, we identified specific executive leadership team members who were chairing those committees, and then who would sit on those committees for those war rooms. And then we met as a team on a weekly basis, and we also obviously had our teams working on the war rooms as well. And then before we officially kicked them off, we came up with a set of metrics on things like customer churn or employee engagement, how engaged customers or employees were feeling, ran surveys for that. So we had specific metrics per war room, and then just would meet as an executive team on a monthly basis, but as a Tiger team on a weekly basis to track those. And we actually still are meeting on a monthly basis to track where we are with those things so we can, on some of them we can summarize and then dissolve them, and some of them will continue and be ongoing.
Great, thank you, Annie. Next question we have is directed to Dave. Dave, you talked about being ruthless in the managing marketing. How do you balance the ruthlessness and limited resources and be early in the customer journey?
I think they go hand in hand, actually. You've got to pick where you can win, and then you've got to draw back in those areas that might not be as cost of acquisition friendly. And I'll give you an example of that. I had to make some hard decisions early on that I have 9 essential businesses globally that we run. And in those 9 businesses, I'd say most of them are hitting their business metrics. And we in normal time, we consider them to be successful. But in COVID, that's not the case. As Annie had said earlier, though, everyone's drawing back on their operating expenditures, and dollars are being saved, which meant I had to go, I've still got a business target I've got to hit. I have less dollars to invest, which means I've got to go take those monies where, even though they would have been successful earlier, I'm going to take those resources and pile them into areas where I know I'm going to get a better cost of acquisition. And that's going to allow me to be early in those customer journeys with our prospects in a more prolific fashion, because I'm reaching a greater audience. So the two go hand in hand. They're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you for that. We're approaching the top of the hour, and I know for me this was a great session. I mean, I learned a lot. I think we picked up some great insights, some great action items. There are clearly some very consistent themes about the need for companies, to reinvent and reimagine themselves, to be focused on redeploying their resources, being close to their customers, focusing on, their pain, being proactive, and do effective targeting. I think there's a lot of good actions that our audience can walk away with and start to respond and operate effectively in this new digital era. So I really want to thank all of you, all of our panelists, for participating and sharing with us. Annie, Manoj, Sam, Dave, thank you all very, very much. Thank you to the audience. We have recorded this session, and we'll make the link available if anyone wants to, relive the experience. It'll be available. And on behalf of Twimbit and my colleagues here, thank you again for sharing an hour of your time with us. And you all have a good day. Stay healthy, safe, and well, and much success in the future. So goodbye all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.